City.
Yo, good brother.
What's happening?
Ain't too much, man. Just wanted to do this little live with you and RL and shit, man. I ain't been live in a little
Welcome,
minute,
man.
so
Yeah, it's been a little minute.
I turn this up.
Empress in the
Empress, peace,
house.
peace.
Empress in the building.
In the building.
You
I'm
know what
about
I'm
to do
saying?
this. I wanted to ask you some questions, man. I know Let was about to ask you a couple of joints, so it's
Oh
for
yeah,
him to
he
get
just
on
asked
over
me.
here.
He just asked me if I believe Jesus was real or Yeshua, and I said yeah. That's all that happened.
That's it, just easy like that. He ain't
Yeah,
say
that's
nothing.
all. No, that's all he wanted to know.
RL was good.
What's happening? Yeah,
Mm.
no, because I'd already asked him the religion question, and he had already said what it was, so nothing else needed to come after that. Because I was ready to
I
ask
got you.
him, like just hearing what I heard, I just kind of wanted to know the camp or whatever, but ain't none of that applied. So
You changed
Mm.
devices. All of a sudden, your mic sound crazy. It's like all of a sudden.
so
Oh, you
messed
can
up.
hear him good, Alvin?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, he cutting in and out. I can hear you though.
All right, cool, man. So what I had wrote down a question or two, man. I wanted to ask you. See
Hmm.
if I could find it.
Yeah.
Do you believe in like there's a heaven or a hell? You believe in heaven or hell?
Um, that's a good question. So yes, but I do think the perspective on those places have has gotten confused over the years. So when you see that word hell in the Bible, there's four different words that translate into hell, and there are four very different things. You have Sheol, you have Tartarus, you have Gehenna, and you have Hades. Okay. Um, Now the Gehenna is an actual real place on Earth where they used to burn dead bodies. It was in the Hoinim Valley, and people used to go over there to dump carcasses over there and burn them. Right. So that's one thing.
Mm.
Tartarus is a place not even of fire, is basically a holding cell for spirits. So there's spirits and other entities locked up and chained up. An example of this would be when Jesus was casting out the demons of that man and he put them into the pigs. The demons, when you look at it, they say, "Hey, don't send us back to hell." But the word they have right there is Tartarus. They say, "Hey, don't send us back to the basically the spiritual penitentiary." You're on lockdown. It's like we don't want to
Mm-hmm.
go back there. So that's Tartarus. And then finally, you have Hades. Now, Hades, that they translate into the Greek, is equivalent to the Hebrew word Sheol. Okay. Now, this is where you get into like the underworld thing, right? So, Hades is described as a place where you have one side where all the good people go, and then you have another side where all the bad people go. You can see that in the book of Luke with the parable of the rich man and poor man, where the poor man who was righteous went on this side of the field and the bad guy went on the other side. Now, here's what's interesting: nowhere in the Bible is Satan said to be in hell. Nowhere. Satan does not
So where
rule
was
over
he?
hell. Satan roams the earth. Everywhere you see him in the Bible, he's walking around the earth. He so that's misconception number one. There's a misconception that you see these pictures with Satan sitting on a throne with people being tormented and demons prancing around. that imagery is actually nowhere in the Bible. What's
How
what
did he get to Earth?
he was cast down. And there's a little bit of confusion about there's like almost three different kind of entities that get confused as being the same person. So you have the cherub mentioned in the book of Ezekiel, right? And that's the classic story of him being cast down, where, hey, he tried to what I'm saying? He got too big for his britches and he ended up getting cast down. Now, the thing about in Ezekiel, that cherub is not even called Satan. You see what I'm saying? People have the assumption that that's talking about Satan, but it doesn't actually mention the cherub's name in there. And then you have the classic verse in Isaiah chapter 14 where it mentions Lucifer. Lucifer is not Satan either. That's the king of Babylon, because it talks about the king of Babylon in the first verse, and then it calls him the light bearer at the end of there. And if you look at the newer translations, they don't even put that word Lucifer there anymore. They just say the morning star. And then finally, you have this Satan figure that you see in the book of Job and in the book of Chronicles and in the book of Zechariah, who acts more as a prosecuting attorney. Okay. So that Satan character is pretty much that's the main guy that people usually talk about. Okay. The prosecuting lawyer, basically. And nowhere in any of the verses is he mentioned being in hell, sitting on a throne with demons prancing around and stuff.
So
So
do you think that means Earth is our hell
no, Earth
since
is
he's
Earth.
already here?
No, Earth is Earth. And there's also another misconception that Satan is somehow the god of evil or something. No, based off the text, he reports to the Most High just like all the other angels. You see that in the book of Job. Okay. When you look at the book of Job, Satan is roaming around the earth, but then he has to come and meet up with the Most High and talk to him and give reports, right? Um, that's very different from the imagery that you see in a lot of movies and a lot of pictures
Mm-hmm.
where you have Satan on one side with all his minions and God on the other side with all his angels, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
no. There is now Satan and angels do fight each other, but God is above all of this. It's like Satan's demons fighting angels would be like United States fighting North Korea. Like all of this is beneath God. Like this is just, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where a lot of the confusion comes when it comes to the Bible. Over the years, you have different imagery of things that aren't even in the Bible. Like this whole idea of a red man with horns and a pitchfork, that's nowhere in the Bible, you know,
Yeah.
or a hell where,
So you think he's like a less of an actual menacing figure,
yeah,
if there was a figure to him?
Satan is basically a tool that will eventually get disposed of when he's no longer needed. That's basically what it is, you know.
Like R.
His
Kelly.
he's a he is a actually no, he's the prosecutor lawyer. He's the one that'll prosecute R. Kelly, right? He's the
Mm.
one where, hey, Satan is the prosecutor, Jesus is the defense. Okay. Now I
Mm-hmm.
always say, look, if you're in a court case, you want to have a good defense because the judge is actually the lawyer's dad, right? But anyway, that's like a little funny little thing. But basically
Right,
that's
right.
how that's how it works, you know. So Satan's role has been amplified more than it actually is over the years. Him as a character is not that big. Um, because
So
yeah, go
who's
ahead.
actually plays that role then, or is there somebody else that's more important as that role, or does he need to be the guy that we put in that role to fulfill that role? Since clearly we need to have a Satan. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I mean, a Satan is just checks and balances, right? It provides the duality. So look, so
The
basically,
yin to the yang.
yeah, he's the tester. It's just, hey, Alvin has an issue with this particular thing. Okay, Satan knows I have this issue with this particular thing. So what he'll do is put that particular thing in my face because he knows I like it. Now, if I do it, then you know what he's gonna do? He's gonna go back and say, "See, I told you Alvin ain't worthy because I put this thing in his face and look what he did." Like that's what
Mm-hmm.
that's basically is. That's what he does. Because the real enemy, now this is the real enemy. The real enemy is not Satan. It's your flesh. Your flesh gives you the desire to do the things. You know what I'm saying? You do
Mm-hmm.
things because you do drugs because it satisfies the flesh. You have sex because it satisfies the flesh. You eat because it satisfies the flesh. You want to get more money to do things so you can satisfy the flesh, right? So that's the real enemy. All Satan does is, hey, I know your flesh. I know what your flesh likes. And I know you probably ain't supposed to be doing that. I'm going to just put that in your face and see what you do. And then when you do it, I'm going to go back and see, I told you he's not worthy. And that's how that works.
So you don't think no forces in nature have like an evil face?
Um, I would say there's opposites. You can use the word evil. I'll use in nature. There's a lot of positive and negative. I'll say that, right? Where you have creation in nature, you also have destruction. Nature can create that tree and it'll grow, and nature can also create a tornado and rip that tree from its roots, right? So you have uh, the positive aspect and the negative aspect, creation and destruction.
Mm.
You know, uh,
So where do you think, like, where do you think all of this imagery comes from? Or, well, let's start here. Where's the first time we actually hear of Satan in the Bible?
by name in the Book of Chronicles, and it's well, actually, I would say the Book of Job first.
Oh
Well, no,
shit,
I
fuck
think
it. You don't gotta even tell me where, because where is not gonna matter to me. What's the story of how we first hear him?
okay. The first time you
Because I
hear him
don't
is
know.
okay. The first time you hear him is in the Book of Chronicles, right? If you go on chronolog, the way the books are in order. The first time you see him is
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
book.
yeah.
Yeah, the first time you see him is in
Oh
the book.
wait, time out, time out. Let me ask you something because I don't know much about the book. Is the book not in? When you say chronological, you mean in book order or in time
Yeah,
order?
in book
And
in
then
book
is
order.
the book not in time order?
No, the Bible is it's vaguely in a chronological order, but not really. Because I was about to say the Book of Job comes after Chronicles, but the Book of Job is actually talking about a story that happens before the events in the Book of Chronicles. So that's why I said in book or I mean in the way the books are position ordered when I say he's first mentioned in the Book of Chronicles. But if you just want to say the first time he's mentioned, period, it would be in the Book of Job. If you want to go by the times the books were written.
I want to go by the lifetime, like time of life. Like, all right, so first
Okay,
in
so the
life
first
or
time
world
it would be
history.
okay. It would be the Book of Job.
Okay.
By name, it'll be the book. It'll
And
be the
he
Book
was a
of Job.
baby there, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like he
No,
was just being thought
no,
of,
he's
or he
he's
was already
fully
big and grown.
fully grown. This is the first time we see him in the literature. Would be the Book of Job. You know,
It's the first time we hear about him, period, too.
yeah, it's the Book of Job. because yeah, the book.
Now, what about the
Mhm.
books before the Bible? Are there any books that predate the Bible in terms of like spirituality or doctrine or
Yeah,
anything like that? Where
we have no record of this character Satan outside of the Abrahamic literature or prior to the Abrahamic literature. Now you do have the
and was his name always Satan? It was
well,
Lucifer first.
Satan isn't even necessarily his name. Satan is simply a,
Got you.
a title. Peter was actually called Satan at one point, right? But there is a particular being called Satan. Now, if you go into the Jewish people folklore, they say his name is Samael, right? That's his actual name. You can see that in the Talmud. They say Samael is actually the angel of death too. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm, that's interesting. So the first time we hear him is as Samael,
sometimes
or the first time we hear him is the Book of Job.
the book of Job. So nowhere in the
Okay,
Bible
and then
does it call him
give me
by
that
name.
story.
The book of Job is where you got a righteous man, land of Uz, and he's rich, he's wealthy, he has all this stuff. God has these councils, right? Where all the angels or beings, whatever, they're called the sons of God. They come and report to him what's going on. Satan came with them, and then God was like, "What's up with Job?" Like I'm paraphrasing. "What's up with Job? What you think about him?" And Satan was like, basically, "Yeah, he cool, but the only reason he's righteous is because you keep blessing him and stuff, right? Like, of course he gonna be praising you because you give him all his good things. Like, take some of this stuff away, and I promise you, he'll curse you to your face, right?" So then, that's what a prosecutor would say, right? He's accusing him of, yo, this is all a sham. So then God was like, okay, go ahead and do your job.
Why God made him? I guess because he
To
needed
to
him, huh?
to he well, not necessarily need him, but for some reason he wanted a checks and balances when it comes to this world. So you have
And so he was like
events.
God's closest advisor or something, right? To be able
Well,
to come and say, do it.
he was definitely on the council. That's why I said the idea of Satan in the modern context is not at all how he is in the actual Bible. In the Bible, he has the role of a prosecuting lawyer. So in the book of Job, Job is on trial and he's prosecuting Job. He's like, look, I'm bringing up charges on Job. I feel he's only being righteous because you're blessing him. So then God basically said, okay, proceed with your investigation. Okay. Like that's basically what it is. So then Satan comes down and he starts taking away stuff from him. Like,
Sin?
what you say?
Oh, Satan, Satan.
Satan. Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. So
I
then,
didn't hear you clearly. Sorry.
yeah. So then Satan comes down and he starts taking things away from Job. Like he took away a whole bunch of his sheep. Some of his children died. He just went on a tear. And here's what's interesting, and this is how it's another interesting thing. When Satan makes stuff happens, it's never him directly doing it. It's not like he went down there and by his own hands killed, his family and took away his sheep. He would create things that would cause things to happen. So Job, his sheep were taken over by a bunch of raiders, and his servants were killed off by that. His children were killed off by some other kind of catastrophe. You know what I'm saying?
But he
So
put those things in place, right? He
exactly,
put
right,
those
right,
catastrophes in place. Do you think
yeah.
he was enjoying it when he was doing that?
Um, I don't know. The script doesn't say. I would just say he at that point he's doing his job. Was there some enjoyment there? I don't know. Maybe.
Right.
So basically, so after that, and all Job had all these things taken away. He didn't curse God. He still praised him. He still worshipped him. So then it was like God was like, "Yo, what's up?" And then Satan was like, Well, look, the only reason he's still praising you is because he still got his health, right? I'm telling you, if I start touching his health or whatever, um, he's gonna curse you to your face. And then God was like, okay, go ahead, proceed with your investigation, but don't kill him though. So then Satan start putting all these diseases on Job. Like he started getting boils, the sores all over his body, and
Mm-hmm.
he was all messed up. But he never blasphemed God during this whole thing. Now, now what happens during the rest of the story is actually the real meat of the story. He has these long conversations with his friends about why these bad things are happening to him. See,
Who Joe?
Job is unaware why these things are happening to him. He has no idea about this conversation Satan and God are having, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's just like, so his friends are telling him, hey, this is happening because you ain't do this right, blah, 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 and you did this. And then another friend is saying it's because of this. And he's just talking to them. And here's what's interesting about this story. How it ends is this. Um, Job asks God a series of questions. He actually starts sounding like an atheist. He's like, "Yo, why do you build stuff up just to destroy it? Why do you bless me just
Mm-hmm.
to curse me? Why like all these duality things? Like it doesn't. Why do you curse the righteous and bless the wicked? Like why do you do all these things, right?" So the answer is kind of funny. I mean, it's funny, but it ain't funny. It's like, listen, am I not the creator of the universe? You need to worry about what you're doing. Don't worry about
What?
what I'm doing. Yeah. He was like, listen, because at the end of the day,
And he told him this like face to face, or it came to him like in his brain, or like
well,
how the hell
yeah,
he get these answers?
it doesn't really get
It doesn't
specific, but
matter.
yeah, it's
Oh.
like at the end of the story, he's giving you the reasons, right? And it's basically like this. This is the world you live in. You need to focus on what you do. You need to focus on how you should be as a good man, or how it's basically in the long run it's that. Don't worry about what I'm doing. You need to worry about what you're doing. And at the end of the day, even for a person that doesn't believe in God, um, good stuff and bad stuff is going to happen to you throughout your life. You need
Mm-hmm.
to focus on how you're going to react to those things and handle those things when they happen. Sitting around all day, you know, moaning and groaning about them happening ain't going to fix these problems, you know? So whether it's a God
Mm-hmm.
making these things happen or these things are just happening natural occurrence, you got to deal with them. So you need to worry about how you're going to handle it instead of, whining about like why these things
Why?
to you, you know? Yeah, so that's the book of Job. That
Hmm.
gave the whole story.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but that's basically Satan though. A disgruntled employee.
But that don't
Um,
seem disgruntled. It seemed like that's what they put him there for.
no, but he does. What the thing is, he's put in that position because if you look at other texts, Satan doesn't really like humans. It doesn't feel like we're
Other texts
worthy.
outside of the Bible.
Yeah, yeah. If you look at other texts like the life of Adam and Eve, and see some of those texts, even though they're not canon, they have trickles, little jewels here and there that provide a greater context, right? Where Satan doesn't feel humans are worthy of God's devotion, right? He doesn't feel they're worthy. So he spends his days trying to prove to God we're not worthy by being a prosecutor, you know? Um, and it's a role that God allows him to have. So this thing where
Mm.
the devil made me do it, I think the devil made that up because Your flesh is what makes you do things. I gotta stress that the flesh is the enemy. That's what makes people do the things they do. You know, why do you want to steal that? Because your flesh desires it. So it provoked you to steal that thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But
Mm.
yeah.
So what would you say if like to people who said that like the Bible is like a history book? Have you heard that before? Like it's
Um
like
it's a history book, but not written how modern day history books are written, right? So modern day history
yeah, what
book
do you mean?
yeah, modern day history books are trying to stay as fact based as possible, right? There's no teaching tool in the history book. They're not trying to give you an ideology in the history book. They're just trying to tell you Napoleon did this and then he did that. They're not making any other accusations about whether Napoleon was good or bad. They're just objectively trying to say Napoleon did this. But when you go into the Bible, they're not just trying to give you a history, they're trying to intertwine lessons within the history. Uh, they're intertwining other narratives in the history that may or may have not happened, but they're using that as a teaching tool to emphasize particular points, especially when you look at
So
some
are
of the
you not
dialogue.
of the belief? Sorry. Are you
Yeah,
not I
go
know
ahead.
there's a delay in my computer. Are
Mhm.
you of or not of the belief that everything in the Bible has happened or like is like prophecy type shit, or is this
So,
simply just moral stories to like
okay, it's a blend of both. Some things are, I mean, one, some people have even argued that the whole story of Job is a like a parable, right? The parable I just mentioned, the rich man and the poor man, that is just a
mhm.
parable. That's not something that actually happened, but he was just saying that as a teaching tool. But then there's actually some things that actually happened, like the Babylonian exile, where, Judah was taken over by the Babylonians and then relocated, right? That happened historically. So when they say it's a history book, I say it's more of a religious text with history in it. But the primary goal would be to teach and practice the religion. The history element of it would be secondary.
And there's no way that shit could have been made just like a fucking Shakespeare book or something like
Well,
entertainment where they change
Shakespeare,
it.
well, that's you hit it
I
on the
just was
head.
using that like not him, but like any novelist or you know what I'm saying, like from back in the days that may have drawn off of some history, but kind of also had a message or a comedic message or whatever it might be. You know what I mean? Is that in your eyes anywhere near possible?
Say that one more time. My bad. It was a cutout.
No, no, it's cool. Like, is it possible from where you stand that the Bible could be just like a novel? You know what I mean? Like just a book where
Okay.
people are like mixing up stuff and it's kind of for entertainment. Maybe it's funny, maybe it's like gut
Mhm.
wrenching, a thriller, maybe it's a fucking nice movie that got a message at the end. Not a movie, but you know what I mean? A nice work of
Okay.
art with a message.
Okay. So yeah, we have words for things like that. You have fables, which are when you have animals talking to each other and they're giving a lesson in there. This is stuff like the tortoise and the hare, the grasshopper and the ant. That's a fable. Then you have satire, where this is just made for entertainment. Like that story with the Lilith and Adam, right? It's in the alphabet of Sirach, right? And that book is labeled a
I don't
satire
know that.
because Yeah, it's labeled a satire because the style it's written in, where they have the story of Adam's first wife, Lilith, and she wanted to have sex with him on top, and he ain't like that. So that's a category of satire. Now, when you look at the Bible,
Hmm.
these books don't fall into the end of those categories because number one, they actually give a moderately accurate history of the formation of Israel and Judah, right? And we can even verify some of the claims. Like, for instance, when Hezekiah was at war with the Assyrians, uh, the Nubian pharaoh Tarhaka was also at war with the Assyrians at that point, and that whole conflict is actually mentioned in the Bible, and he mentions Tarhaka by name in the text. So it's like you're not you're actually talking about historical kings and historical events that actually happen, as opposed to Shakespeare, where you're talking about Romeo and Juliet. That's like those people are just whole cloth made there for
But
entertainment.
like 300, like what about 300? That's a real
Yeah,
story. But
300,
then
300. Yeah, that'll be kind of closer to more what I'm talking about. There was a battle of Thermopylae. There was a Leonidas. There was a Xerxes. Okay, there
right.
was
But that shit
a
was for
guy.
entertainment. You know what I mean?
No,
They
no,
they
no. But
still
it
had
was a.
pretty accurate telling.
But it did actually happen though. The Battle of Thermopylae was a historical event with the Persians and the Spartans. It actually did happen. Now, was Xerxes a 12-foot tall Circus du Soleil reject? Right? No, probably not. Did the three did the 300 were there actually? First of all, there was more than 300 guys also in the actual Battle of Thermopylae, but
Right.
the event actually happened though. Now,
Right.
Herodotus maybe exaggerated certain elements of the event. Like, was there actually a million soldiers against 300? Probably not. There's still a lot, probably maybe 30, 40,000 of them. So there's elements that are exaggerated a little bit, but I wouldn't say it's pure entertainment because it's actually based off an event that actually happened. So when you look at
Right. But
yeah, go ahead.
would that still, if the Bible was of that vein, would that not wouldn't that change the impact of the Bible? Or you know what I mean? Like, or would it change, like, where, like, would you still think it's the actual word of God?
Absolutely, because
Because it's
the focus is not historical accuracy. The focus is not scientific accuracy. The focus is what is the message? Okay. So if I'm going to give a storytelling and you'll get the message if I exaggerate this point, you'll get it, you'll have a more clear understanding of what I'm talking about. If I exaggerate this thing, then I'm going to go ahead and do it because I'm not writing this book to give you an accurate view of history. I'm writing this book to you for you to have a better understanding of the lesson I'm trying to give you. See what I'm saying? So it really
right.
matters
But I
the
feel like,
intent.
no, I agree. But like, even with the intent, does that make it of God? So because 300 wasn't worried about the fucking accuracy of the event, obviously, or the
Mhm.
accuracy of this or that. It was more like the message. That's why they had them long ass monologues and the fucking hoorah
Well,
speeches, and
it
you know what
depends
I'm
on
saying?
if you're talking about. Okay, so there's two things. If you're talking about the movie 300, that's about entertainment. But if you're talking about the record recorded by Herodotus about 300, that's him recording an event. So there's two different things there. You know what I'm saying? The movie is
Okay.
obviously made for entertainment, but when it comes to Herodotus
Yeah.
talking about that, he was talking about it like, yo, this is something historically that happened. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just giving
Yeah.
you a record of it.
I got you. I got you. So that's
Mhm.
not really a good analogy.
It's yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. No. But
like, because it's just like
it's a good
little nuances.
analogy. It's a good analogy when it comes to this. If you talk about Herodotus, that lets you know how people wrote history back then. So Herodotus probably exaggerated a couple of things back then, but when people wrote history books back then, the concern wasn't so much for it to be accurate, more so than this is the gist of what happened. Okay.
You don't think the
The,
concern was to kind
mhm.
of make their people look better for the most part? Like, or give it like their
Some
own.
people did do that. Some people did do that in writing their history books. It's called spin.
So like why can't we believe or think that some people did that with all these different books in the Bible,
I'm gonna give you the best answer because if you read the Bible, the
which I
Israelites,
haven't.
yeah, the Israelites are portrayed as being awful. Like God's chosen people are this is why they keep getting cursed because they do wicked thing after wicked thing after wicked thing. You have King David, he killed a man and took his wife. Abraham sometimes looks like a coward. The fact that the, the Bible is so hard on the people who are the chosen people shows a level of objectivity that's different from other texts written during this time. Like if you look at how the Egyptians wrote about Ramses II, you would think he never made a mistake in his life. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to put
Hmm.
anything damning about him. Like even with his whole war against the Hittites or whatever, they I think there's something where it's like, yeah, we crushed them soundly. But then when you look at the Hittite record, they're saying that they crushed him soundly. So it's like there's some,
Hmm.
but when you look in the Bible, unlike any other history book, they self they give a very honest view of themselves as we're the chosen people, but we're constantly doing wicked things. That's why we keep getting cursed. So if anything, the Bible makes portrays the Israelites as a savage bunch of people, actually, to be honest with you.
But wouldn't any people that wrote their own book consider themselves the chosen people?
I mean, you can make that argument, and I'm saying the difference is when you see other books about people feeling like they're the chosen, the propaganda is we're perfect in every way. While the
Right.
Bible authors, they portrayed their people as very flawed people. The patriarchs were flawed. King David and Solomon are probably one of the most popular figures in the entire Bible. But the authors of the text are not afraid to point out their flaws, where they messed up.
Do you think that they do you think that they were so freely pointing out their flaws so that they could create a God that was forgiving?
Um,
I'm sorry.
well,
Like,
not
you
well,
know what I
not
mean?
they
Or
didn't always get forgiven. Like Ahab and Jezebel, wicked. They're very wicked, They were kings, and
they're
I mean,
Israelites?
yeah, King Ahab, he was an
Okay.
Israelite, wicked. There's a lot
Okay.
of wicked Israelite kings in the Bible, and they actually got crushed. So it's the Bible is so from a credibility standpoint. I don't. It's not. You can't really call it propagandist because if it was propagandist, you would expect to see the Israelites were perfect in every way. We're God's people. We never made a mistake. The patriarchs never did anything wrong. Blah blah blah. But when you actually look at it, all of the patriarchs were very flawed men. I mean, the 12 sons of Jacob, what did they do to their brother? They basically sold their own brother into slavery. They cast him into a well and just got rid of him. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
this is why is more intent on lessons than trying to create propaganda to make themselves look better. Because when you look at, I always say this, like I run into people that say, "Hey, the Bible hates Africans. The God of the Bible hates Africa." I was like, there is no other group of people in the Bible that gets cursed more than the Israelites.
But aren't the Israelites Africans?
I mean, look, they can if somebody wants them to make if people want to say, "Hey, Israel." is really North Africa. If people want to do that, I mean, it's like whatever. I don't really make a big deal out of it. You know,
Are all the kings of the Bible considered Israelite kings?
well, you have two kingdoms. You have the kingdom of Judah in the south, and you have Israel in the north. So you could, it's a yes and no, because if you are a descendant of Jacob, right? If you descend from Jacob, you can call yourself an Israelite because he changed his name to Israel. So you just by being a descendant of him, yeah, you're Israelite. But that doesn't mean you ruled in the northern kingdom that they called Israel. So it's a yes or no. It's a yes and no.
Hmm.
Because Hezekiah, he was the king of Judah, right? Then you have someone like Ahab, he's the king of Israel. So you got two, a split happened. At first there was a united monarchy. You had King David and King Solomon ruling over both the kingdoms, right? But then the split happened when Solomon died.
Hmm.
But when it comes into the Bible, the focus is not about being scientific or being historically accurate. It's about, do you get what I'm trying to tell you lesson wise? You know what I'm saying? Do you understand?
How much of the Bible do you consider to be prophecy? And is there? I guess there has to be. There's a difference between prophecy and just like general lessons.
Okay, well, you actually have a collection of books called the prophets. You have the major prophets and the minor prophets, right? So the major prophets would be was that like Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
you have a whole bunch of the minor prophets,
Shit.
like
My fault.
Hosea. You got like Hosea, Amos, Obadiah, Haggai, Malachi. Those are the minor prophets. So there's actually a
So many
section.
names I never heard before, man.
Yeah, there's actually a section where you have the prophets, right? You have the writings, and then you have the law. Okay, that's the Torah. That's how the Old Testament is broken down. So
Okay.
you have prophetic books, then you have the law, and then you have writings. Like this is where you get the book of Proverbs. A lot of philosophical um, advice as far as like how a man should be. You got the Song of Solomon. Like poetry on how much a man loves a woman, kind of stuff. So it's breaking up into these sections, and a lot of
Can
these
you
books get
say
overlooked.
a lot of the books? What?
A lot of books get overlooked.
Like, what do you think is the most overlooked book?
Uh, the Book of Nahum. You heard of that book?
No. What the
Yeah,
fuck is that?
yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like you
What
got
is
books
that?
like that. Here's a fun
What is?
fact about the Book of Nahum. He's a prophet. He actually mentions the Egyptian god in there, Ammon, Thebes.
Oh, and says what?
Let me pull that up. It's not something real deep. Hold on. I think it's in verse 8.
Seventh book of the 12 minor prophets of the Hebrew Bible.
Yeah, he mentions
Is that like a book that got taken out, like the Book of Enoch
no,
type
no,
shit?
it's in the Bible. The Book of Nahum is one of the 66 books.
Is Enoch the only one missing?
No, there's several missing. You got Enoch, the Book of Giants. You have Book of Jubilees. You got the Book of Maccabees, first, second,
What is
third,
that?
fourth
All of these is the
Maccabees.
books of like fucking different beings. So you got giants.
No,
What's a fucking
well,
Huckabee?
of events. So the Book of Maccabees is talking about the Hellenization period, where the Greeks were forcing Jews to be like more like Greek-like, right? The Book of Giants is basically the Book of Enoch on steroids, where the Book of Enoch is talking about how angels or the sons of God were coming down and having babies with human women. The Book of
Mm-hmm.
Giants actually talks about them coming down and having babies with animals. Yeah,
Dinosaurs and shit.
yeah. The Book of Giants is actually found in Dead Sea Scrolls. We don't have a complete copy of it. It's like broken up. Like we got
Who
like little
decided to take
fragments of
these
it.
books out and why? Do you? It's from your
Well,
understanding.
let's use the right phraseology. No books are taken out. It's a matter of which books do you want to add. Because when all of these books were originally written, there wasn't a canon. These were all just separate scrolls. You know what I'm saying? Apart from each other. You know what I'm saying? When they start putting them
Hmm.
together, it was more of a matter of what do we want in our canon, not what we already have a pre-existing canon, which one we want to take out. See what I'm saying?
Do these niggas know each other though, bro? Like and like be like, yo, so I'm gonna take my man book over here because he wrote a book. I'm gonna put that shit with this
No,
book.
no. What it
Like
is you okay, the canonization happened because of this guy Marcion, right? So Marcion created this canon where he took the book of Luke and some of the epistles, and he created a doctrine saying that Jesus was the real God and the Old Testament God was evil. He called him a demiurge, right? The Old Testament God was evil, and he has all of us humans trapped on here, and Jesus is trying to help us escape. Like that's the Marcion
did the
doctrine.
Old Testament God have a name?
Yeah, Yahweh. He says Yahweh
Okay.
of the Old Testament was the evil God, and Jesus is the real God. And so what he did, what Marcion did was he took the book of Luke and edited out all of the references to the Old Testament. And then he did it with it was like two of let me see I'm gonna tell you the exact books he did, Marcy. He edited out
Do we know what books started the Bible? Like right, because a book that comes later in the actual book, the Bible, could have been one of the more four written books.
okay,
Correct?
so the oldest book, one of the oldest, it really starts with the book of Deuteronomy, I would say. The book of the law.
Book of Deuteronomy.
Book of the law is where you
Mhm.
start getting a formation of some kind of canon, which later turns into the Tanakh. So the Old
And who
Testament,
uses the Tanakh?
what do you say?
What group? What group uses the Tanakh? Is that the Hebrews?
Everybody, Christians,
What's
Jews,
the is it
Hebrews.
Tanakh,
It's the Old
Talmud?
Test. It's basically the Old Testament. Tanakh is basically the Old Testament.
What's the Talmud?
The Talmud is stuff written later. That's a bunch of opinions by rabbis that came centuries later.
Okay,
You know what I'm saying? The Tanakh is just basically the Old Testament that everybody has in their
okay,
book. Uh,
okay. So those were the first. Whatever was the first one was in that included in
yeah,
that
those are.
collection.
Yeah, the first canon is the 39 you see in your Old Testament now. You know. Now,
Mm-hmm.
here's what's interesting. There's other books mentioned in the Tanakh that we don't even have access to anymore. Like we don't even have copies of. Like the book of Nathan the seer, uh, the book of Edo the prophet. Um,
And there's
it's
no way
saying
to get this. It
they're
doesn't exist
gone.
anywhere.
They're lost in history. They've been corroded. You know what I'm saying? Um, they're just lost. We don't have access to them anymore.
So wait, bro. So this means like all these people from all over the world was making all these books, and then it just all the information gathered in like one place, and somebody just put it together, type shit.
No, it's more organic than that. There wasn't. uh, like when it comes to a canon, there's not this thing where you know what, let's just go in a room and say this is it, and then from that point on, that was it. No, it didn't happen like that. So you started having a pattern of popular books, you know. So Deuteronomy is all over the place. Everybody likes Deuteronomy, so that was like unanimous. You see that in everybody's canon. Uh, the book of Jeremiah. Everybody liked
And so when
Jeremiah.
Deuteronomy comes out, I'm sorry, before you move on, when Deuteronomy comes out, people are taking this like, yo, God wrote this.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the popular. It's like the canons, the books in the canon you see now. The simple answer is the reason they're in there is because they were the most popular. Like
Right,
that's the simple answer. They
right.
maintain, people made the most copies of them, people taught from them from the most. So it's like an organic thing where like maybe a book like Nathan the Prophet, people probably didn't teach from that as much. You know what I'm saying? People probably didn't make as much copies of that. You know, it probably
Mm-hmm.
wasn't that popular. So over the years, it just, over time,
Fell
people started
off.
making copies that just fell off. So the reason why the 66, why I deal primarily with the 66 books is because the 66 books is in everybody's canon. You know, the 66 books are in the Eastern Orthodox canon, it's in the Ethiopian canon, it's in the Catholic canon, it's in everybody's canon. But after you get to 66, that's when people start having the debates about, well, what about the Book of Jubilees? Should that be in there or shouldn't it? What about the Book of Enoch? Should that be in there or shouldn't it? So the reason why the 66 books are the standard is because that's like a unanimous thing where everybody agrees on those. You know, now that's the
Hmm.
simple answer. You know, so
No,
the
that makes
canon,
sense.
yeah, so the canon developed more so through popularity than people just getting up in the room and saying, "Yo, this is the book. These are the book we're gonna choose," and that's it.
And because I don't know, forgive me if I sound ignorant, but in Deuteronomy, are they like, yo, this book, I'm writing this, and God's telling me to write this? Like,
Yeah, if it's a
what
prophet,
makes it okay?
if a prophet is writing it, a prophet is literally the spokesman.
I didn't know
That's
that was a prophet name. I didn't know what that. I thought that was just a word, a
no, that's
crazy
just a
ass
book of the
word. That's
law.
somebody's name.
No, it just means
Okay,
law or Torah, whatever. So, is a prophet? A prophet would have to write, or else nobody would accept it. You know, at that time period, if this is not coming from a prophet, people ain't even trying to hear it. You know,
all right. Who was the
so
prophet that wrote Deuteronomy?
well, most of the prophets in the Old Testament are nameless. Most of them that are writing these
Oh
books,
my
um,
God, bro.
most of them are
So how are
nameless
we supposed to take this? I
because
don't get it.
people take it's almost like this. If you saw an iPhone in the middle of the street and started using it, you see it, you're seeing that it works. You're concerned about the creator of it would not be something you're thinking of. You're like, well, I picked it up and it's working. So that's the mind
Right.
frame of them. You know, they're like, hey, we got a book. And again, the people at the time period would know who, but we don't. You know, because like I said, a lot of this information is coded away. But if you look at a book and you follow the codes and you're seeing it's working for you in your life, um, the author of it, you know what I'm saying, becomes less relevant to
Significant.
you. Yeah,
Right.
because that's really what when it comes to religion, it's about practice. You know, like people have beliefs but don't practice shit. You know what I'm saying? Like how many people you
So
know?
all
Yeah, go ahead.
no, you go ahead. How many people you know
Yeah, I'm
what?
saying like how many people you know that say they believe in God, but when you look how they live, they're not practicing anything like you would think they believe in. You know what I'm saying? They just say, "Yeah, I believe in
Right.
God," but they doing all this devilish shit. You know, that's why I'll
Right.
say there's a difference between belief and practice or religion.
So a prophet is not a prophet unless he's prophesizing, and it's not a prophecy unless it comes truth, right? Or is it still a
Well,
prophecy even if
the
it doesn't
role,
come true?
the role of a prophet is not necessarily just to predict the future, but it's to be God's spokesman, right? So when you look at somebody like Moses, when he's talking about, hey, don't do this, don't do that, those aren't necessarily predicting the future. This is just saying, listen, I talked to God. This is what he's telling me he wants y'all to do. So the role of a prophet is literally to be God's spokesman, right? Where they have a direct line to God. They can audibly hear God speaking to them, and then they can relay
Mm-hmm.
the message to the people. Like today, I don't think there's any prophets today. I think the last prophet was John. So when I see people saying, yo, I'm a prophet and all of this, I get real skeptical because I'm like, yo, they're all dead.
Why do you think they all dead? You don't think God is giving people talents no more?
Because I believe people have talents, right? Now, simply seeing the future doesn't necessarily make you a prophet, right? Um, what makes you a prophet is like if I know because Paige on she talked about how she has dreams and then they come true. That's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily being a prophet. That's you having some kind of foresight gift or whatever that you can see that. A prophet is when,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I have a direct line to God. God audibly tells me what he wants to say to the people, and then I relay the message to them. That's a prophet. You know what I'm saying? Uh,
What are the possibility that these people are hearing stuff audibly, but it's like the opposite of God?
I mean, there's a possibility everything could be made up. There's a possibility that you don't even exist, and everything that's happening in my world is fake. They call this solipsism, where
Mm-hmm.
you only exist in your head. Uh, I don't really go there, but look, there's a possibility that you, Empress, this hangout, this world is just a figment of my imagination, and I'm alone in my own head, and I'm seeing like I mean, you could take it you could take it to the extreme. You know what I'm saying? I don't believe that, but that's always going to be an option. Uh, it's just a matter of if you believe that or not. You know?
Hmm.
Yeah, but I'm
So,
not a solid.
are there predictions in the Bible? Since I know I've been thinking prophet means like future and stuff like that. Is there anyone that we know in the Bible that makes predictions,
Yeah, they make
or does the
predictions.
Bible itself say, yeah, this is gonna happen, that's gonna happen?
Yeah, they make predictions, right? That's prediction is a part of prophecy. Now, I will say this: the issue when it comes to Bible prophecies is they're somewhat cryptic, and and people. I'll put it like this, and I'll be honest with you: if you really want to make something a fulfillment of a particular prophecy, you can try to twist and bend something around and say that's it if you really tried. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like if you
Mm-hmm.
really, but then that's not really the honest way of doing it. Now, like one, for instance, one prophecy that I do find interesting would be, what is that? In the book of Isaiah, chapter 19, where it says Egypt will worship the God of Abraham. They say the Egyptians will start worshiping Yahweh. Now, what I find interesting about that is him saying that in that particular time would have sound ridiculous. Like Egypt was not, this is when they're dealing with Ra and Amun and all this. But guess what?
Mm-hmm.
In today's world, who do
They
Egyptians
do.
worship? They worship the God of Abraham. They're Muslims. They worship, they call him Allah, right? They speak Arabic. Oh, and
Mm-hmm.
that's another thing. It also says the Egyptians won't speak their language anymore. They'll speak the language of the Canaanites, right? And we know Arabic is a descendant of the Canaanite language, right? So they're worshiping. the God of the Bible over there now, and they're speaking a Semitic dialect. So it's like, you got stuff like that happen. To me, that's one where it's pretty straightforward. Now, there's other brothers that have other prophecies that are fulfilled that get a little bit more cryptic, and you would probably hear them be like, "Yeah, I see that, but that's a bit of a stretch." Like I can see you
Yeah,
saying, you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Uh,
Like that ain't that, nigga.
yeah. You might say that, but prophecy is a very difficult thing, especially when you look at the Book of Revelation, where everything's cryptic. You got seven heads. You got the horns, and you got the woman with the moon at her feet. All the cryptic stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
It's
So
difficult
what
to
would you say
decipher.
to somebody?
Mhm.
Go ahead, one more time. I cut you off.
No, some of that stuff is difficult to decipher.
Hmm.
Mhm.
What would you say to somebody who says that um the prophecies or the things that you see in the Bible, like none of it actually happened yet?
Um,
Satan didn't fall from heaven yet.
I would have to have a conversation and see how they came to that conclusion.
Is that a concept you've never heard before?
I've heard of a preterist where they say everything has already happened, right? Uh, where they say all of the events in Revelations and all of that, everything is already done. I've
Jesus already
seen,
came back.
yeah, all of that. I've seen that. I haven't seen none of it has happened yet. I haven't seen that one before.
Have you ever seen that people say Satan didn't fall from heaven yet and that he's gonna?
No, I haven't seen that one yet.
Have you
I'll,
explored in your mind the possibility? Well, you probably haven't since you haven't heard of it, but off the top of your head, is there anything you could say to back that up? Or is there anything that you could
no.
say that completely refute it?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to find a reason why, especially so like for example, if King David has already lived and died, and I know Satan tempted him to count the soldiers, I don't know how I would then say Satan hasn't happened yet if David has already happened yet. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
So it'll be a little difficult.
mm-hmm,
I don't
mm-hmm.
know how I would square that circle.
That's
You know what I'm
interesting.
saying?
Well, I don't know that deep into it, but just to think that, like, if that shit didn't happen yet, that would be kind of crazy when it did happen. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe it wouldn't even look crazy. It would look normal. Like maybe it'd just be a motherfucker being born, and that's him falling from heaven. You know what I mean?
What do you say? Say
I
again?
was saying maybe it didn't have to look. Can you hear me?
Yeah, so that I get now I can hear you.
Hello.
Mm-hmm.
I was saying
Yeah, I
maybe,
can hear you.
like, I'm just wondering, like, if none of that shit did happen yet, and he didn't fall from heaven yet. You know what I mean? I was thinking maybe it would look really crazy when he was falling from heaven, but then again, that shit could just fit in the times now where he could just be born through somebody and that be him falling from heaven. You know what I mean? Maybe his
But also,
spirit fell from heaven.
yeah, but also, I'm not even sure if the cherub that fell from heaven is actually Satan. You know what I'm saying? There's a
Mm-hmm.
cherub mentioned falling from heaven. He's not referred to as. There's an assumption that is Satan, but the text never really calls that cherub Satan. Because then when you look at the role of Satan,
So,
Satan is moving around like nothing even really happened to him. Like he's roaming around the earth. He's still making trips to heaven and talking to God. Like, you know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm. He was He probably got
So
a fucking business suit on and everything,
yeah, that's what I'm
just
saying.
blending
So
in.
yeah. So yeah, it's
Damn.
tripped out.
Yeah, no, that's super trippy. I'm always interested in this kind of stuff, man, but it's like I don't know, for some reason I can't bring myself to I'm gonna read the Bible. I've been saying that to myself as I've been talking to more and more people. I wanna like familiarize myself a little bit more with it. But I feel like because I grew up and it was like thrown at me and shit like that, I feel like I just like
Well, let me tell you the
reject
issue.
it.
Let me tell you what the issue comes, right? Um, a lot of times when somebody wants to have an honest conversation about the Bible, right? And maybe somebody like you comes along and asks a tough question, right? The
Mm-hmm.
response of the Christian or whoever will deter them if it ends up like something like this. You don't need to worry about that because all that matters is your relationship with God, right? That is going to make somebody
Mm-hmm.
suspicious because it's like, yo, it's like you're simply dodging my question and saying something that I'm not, that's not what I'm concerned about at this point. And I think when
But
people
that's
grow
like
up,
what Job did to God. He asked the question.
well, with Job, well, God gave him an answer. He was like, look,
But he gave him the same
I,
shitty answer.
no,
Don't
because
worry about it.
no, the thing is, it's a difference from a human telling you what God is doing and God telling you what.
Okay.
Like if you ask me personally, yo, Alvin, why you doing that? I'm like, it ain't none of your business. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
It'd be like, yo, that's me. That's me in
Right.
the first person. Now, if you ask me, yo, why did God do these things? I'll be like, well, let's look at that. Let me see why he did that. You know what I'm saying? Then we will have a discussion. You know? Yeah. So I think when that happens, you have a serious question. Um, you really get it. It really gets. It deters people from even wanting to ask. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like yeah. Chill, man. Like when it comes to the Bible, when it comes to the Bible, um, it's a lot of things in there. It's a 2,000-year-old book that has a lot of things in there that are figurative, that are real, supernatural. Um, and it takes, this is why people have been studying it for long because it's like there's a lot of puzzles in there. Oh, hold on just one second, see. Hold on.
Yeah. I don't even know who's in here with me. Aurel, you still there?
Yep.
Oh shit, I thought you might have been knocked out. Empress was good. You still there? She probably knocked out. What you been thinking about or he been saying, bro? Let Aurel.
Yo. What the-
Was you hearing him?
Yeah, I'm about to hop off of here.
Take alright. Get with me in the morning. I'll get with you first or whatever.
All right, for sure. All right.
Alright, family.
Peace.
Wow. That might be it for my Bible questions. I don't know how much more I got. So anyway, y'all, I just want to come on here, man, and talk some shit, ask a couple random ass late night questions I was having. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, all that shit. If you're watching this after the fact, you know, appreciate y'all. I'm gonna end this one right here. Peace.